Hello everyone, Yellow Canine here again. This video is going to be sort of a continuation of my Tourbox review. I decided I wanted to go more in depth on my animation process and finish up the animation I started in that review. I wanted to split this into its own video because it ended up being pretty long. I figured I'd keep the other one short and simple as the main review, then keep a separate video for anyone who would be interested in seeing more of my animation process. This video will show the full process of me creating this animation, as well as have a little bit of commentary and tips throughout. If you're interested in learning more about the Tourbox device that I'm using in this video, please check out the review video. It's going to be another animation for an art trade. It's going to be a little character playing their Switch, and I'm actually going to show you the reference photos that I'm using so that you can see what I'm working off of and give you a little behind the scenes into my process. So I highly recommend taking reference photos or looking for reference photos whenever you can when you're working on art or animation or literally anything else. It's so helpful to getting posing right. And yeah, it's just a really good habit to get into. And obviously it's super quick to just take a photo of yourself or get a friend to take a photo of yourself doing something and use that as reference photo for your drawing. So let's see. This is me. I went and got a photo or a video of me playing with my Switch. And yeah. I'm gonna use this as pose reference. Just to help out with proportions and stuff while I'm drawing. So yeah. It's way more useful to take reference as opposed to always drawing from memory. It's gonna look way more accurate in the end. Just improve your overall products. Yeah, the eyedropper tool is a little bit different from the preset I had in Photoshop. I use this button and this button for the eyedropper tool and this in Adobe Animate. So it's a little bit different. Just to sort of like check my proportions. Just to see sort of how close I got. I'd exaggerate this a little bit. Okay. One other thing that I didn't mention yet is that Tourbox comes with this little pop-up tool thingy here. So it's sort of like a little cheat guide kind of thing. When you're just starting out, it's kind of useful to remind yourself where you put all the configuration for the hotkeys. So we're sort of going for like a little idle pose of the character sort of swinging back and forth. And I'm going to add in the tail later. It's going to be also wagging its tail. And this is just a super rough outline for it to give me an idea of where I sort of want the body to sway. One technique that I like to use in my animation is keeping it simple at first. Basically, I want to animate the main stuff first, so I don't draw stuff like the fluff on until afterwards, so I can animate that straight ahead. And I'll animate the fluff and the ears and all that stuff later, so I can focus on it. So just focus on getting the main movement down first before going into details like that. And just making this drawing for the head like sort of bald, it just helps me maintain the correct structure. So I know everything's like proportionately correct before I end up animating like the ears, fluff, stuff like that. Now I'm actually going to animate these ears and fluff later, but I'm just going to draw them there just to see how it would look right now. But when doing stuff like secondary action stuff, like things that drag like ears, it's always nice to make them drawn in a different color, just so you can differentiate it from everything else. Makes it way more organized when you go to animate it. Usually for stuff like this where the face isn't changing angle that much, just to stay consistent, make sure that the face doesn't form or change too much, I'll usually trace the previous frame and then just move it to wherever it needs to be so that everything stays consistently shaped. I'm just going to draw the switch on another layer here just to make sure that it maintains its shape and size. And then move it back into place. From the outside, it's easy to think that I'm some perfect animator that does flawless work every time. But truth is, I mess up a lot, and a lot of times I'll end up having to restart or redraw something. And there's definitely no shame in that, but it sometimes takes a little bit to get right. You might not get it right the first time, and that's okay. And it happens to people, even like me, who are very experienced. But truth is, this stuff's hard, and sometimes it is really frustrating to get right. And I think I'm sort of liking this better. For a bit. We'll see. But definitely don't be afraid to start over if you don't like how something's going. And you learn every time you draw something, and hopefully next time you draw it, it will end up being better. So, when I'm doing this, looking back and forth between the frames, this Tourbox, using these keys here, is so incredibly helpful. Just to flip back and forth between frames, just to see what I'm doing, make edits where I need to. Very convenient. Again, I'm gonna want to trace the face to make sure everything's consistent. And then I'm just gonna start by making a middle frame. I'll position the head in a second once I retrace it. Yep, use onion skin. Reposition it. I just want it to make more of an arc, so this one. Let's see. So once I do a middle frame, I'm going to want to copy that and paste it on the other side so that it loops back. So we're making a looping animation. So we got the framework for what we're going to do. Obviously we need way more frames in there to make it smoother, so I'm gonna make sort of an in-between from the first frame to the middle frame. Again, I'm gonna trace the head so that everything is really consistent, nothing is deforming, shape, size, make sure everything's nice and clean. But I'm not actually copying and pasting the actual drawing we're using like the select tool, lasso tool to copy and paste stuff, because redrawing it is always going to give it that nice hand-drawn, more organic look, because you can definitely tell when people use like a select tool or just copy and paste like frames. So yeah, in my opinion, it's always better to just retrace every frame. It is definitely tedious, but the result is way better. It just looks way more organic and nice. The character does look pretty funny when it's like bald like this. No ears or fluff, but I'm definitely still gonna be adding that later on. Again, I like to do that just so everything, like the head shape and everything, is really consistent, and yeah, everything is gonna be looking right. And then the fluff will come later, the ears will come later. Yeah, just so that everything underneath, like the underlying structure, is really solid and nothing is deforming or looking weird. Yeah, so then after the in-between between the first and the middle and the last, I'm gonna do sort of a closer or a favoring to the first frame. So sort of easing out of that first keyframe into the next position. And I'm going to do the same for the second keyframe later in a second. Sometimes it's actually better if you remove the middle frame and just sort of ease out. And I think in this case it might be one of those times. So, there we got our head bob. I think it could use maybe one more frame. To give it, make it a little bit more smooth. But I'm going to have to keep it really close to the main keyframes. So it's like really subtle kind of settling. Let's see. You're going to always make sure to really trace closely to your original drawing. Otherwise, you're going to have like little wobbly bits, and it's not going to be good. Most frequently I get asked what program I use to animate, and I use Adobe Animate. It is not free, it is part of Adobe's subscription platform, Creative Cloud. But I get a whole bundle with a bunch of other softwares, and I do use a lot of the other softwares. Mainly, I use Photoshop for drawing. I also use Photoshop for animating pixel art, and other Adobe products I use Premiere for video editing and After Effects sometimes as well. Actually, I'm gonna see how it feels to stick that middle page back in there. It's not bad. Since this is kind of a complex sort of motion, I might break up all the different parts into layers just to make things way easier and more organized. So I'm gonna animate like the arms and legs separately, for example, because it's gonna get messy really quick. Adding the drag on the ears really gives such life to the animation. It just adds so much to it. It's probably my favorite part to animate is like the ears and the tail and stuff. This is what's nice about keeping everything separate on separate layers, different colors. So the underlying structure is really solid and everything's really consistent, doesn't change shape. But then keeping things on different layers, you can lock the layers and then you can just erase what lines you don't need on the underlying layers. And everything stays really clean and organized, and it's easy to clean up, keep everything separate and organized. So what I do for coloring, since everything's like all kind of scattered on different layers here, what I have to do is make a new layer. Every other frame is keyframe, so what I do is I unlock every layer that has art or drawing on it, all the different layers. What I do is I select everything, I copy and paste it onto a new frame, and that is going to be my color layer. So I basically make a merged line art layer below everything, but I still keep everything on one layer, or it's on separate layers, I mean. Usually just start by just completely coloring the first frame to all the colors that are needed according to the reference sheet. Coloring is a fun part, but it's also super tedious, especially if the character has a lot of markings. So since this character has pure white markings, what I usually like to do is have a background layer just so I know when I color in the white, just so I make sure that there's no gaps or I end up forgetting to color in a spot. I really like outlining all the markings like this. It definitely helps to make things really clear and make sure that nothing's wobbling or looking weird, but it's also like really satisfying just like coming back and coloring in each patch that you've like outlined. And especially with the Tourbox, I can super quickly go between frames and make this process super fast. So a really quick trick to doing a shadow in Adobe Animate. I really like to do this. I like to duplicate my color layer and basically make all the color, all the color layer. I select all the frames in the color layer and then make it a shadow color like black and basically just reduce the opacity on that. And then just rotate or flip the shadow, all those layers vertically. Use the transform tool to sort of squish them, make them skewed a bit, and then put them in their place underneath the character. Really quick and easy way to make a shadow. and have it perfectly line up or be like the exact silhouette of the character and fully animated. Here's how the completed animation turned out. I'm pretty happy with it. If you're interested in purchasing the Tourbox device that you can see me using in this video, the cost of the product is $169, but you can get $10 off that price and free shipping if you use the coupon code that's in the description of this video. Hope you enjoyed seeing the process of me making this. Always happy to share a little behind the scenes on how I do what I do. Thanks for checking this out, and have a good day.